we'll just since we're on a little bit of a time crunch for Valerian, I'll just forego the entrances. Welcome, everybody, to number 148. I don't know what we'll do for number 150. I don't know how special we can really make these, but we'll see.
I have a major twist that probably will come up based on what I've got left in my buffer. So that'll be something to celebrate, for me at least.
Oh, sounds cool.
Yeah. What about you, Supreme Master Boomerion the Dread? You have anything that you feel like saving up for big 150?
You mean something special in my novel that I'm... Well, I mean, things will happen. Actually, things will happen in this novel, in this chapter, now that I mention it. And things will happen in other chapters, too.
Sounds good,
Yeah.
Would you feel like going first? I hear you got some schedule stuff that comes up later.
Yeah, sorry. Grabbing some water. Yikes. Okay. Let's see. And everyone remembers where we were last time. We had a bunch of Imperial people hanging out and and annoying each other. And, I'm sorry. I need to open the document, too. I'm sorry. Yikes. Yes. It wants to know if I want to... Okay. Okay. Sorry, here we are. Okay. So, Mbawa threw back his head in acknowledgement and turned to listen to glorious Uncle Juarama, fraternal twin to glorious Prince Sara and younger brother to Exalted, whom Mbawa admired although, or because, he was rather the black sheep or flying kanwari of the imperial family, and a kanwari is a flightless bird. So, Juarama wore the basic imperial red, but only had the one ruby on his ring. That sort of ostentation not really being his cup of sorrel tea. And apart from his bald spot, there wasn't really much in his appearance to attract notice. He had brought a couple of boxes worth of essays along and began to take them out of his bag. He's not going to read them aloud, is he? Murmured Mpu. God have mercy. Juarama, in fact, was shunned by most of the others because he was, horrors, intelligent and able, and even worse, an admirer of Muku, who insisted on calling Blessed Muku. To be fair, they also disliked him because he liked to talk a lot, and addressed everyone as if they were a public meeting, or at the meeting were inclined to roll their eyes. Mbawa, however, listened with awe as Juarama, in a somewhat monotonous albeit not unpleasing baritone, made a, quote, brief summary, end quote, of the, quote, sweeping reforms, end quote, he wished to instigate. He wished to institute, counting them rather pedantically on his fingers. I have a program of 9 main points. Firstly, reform of the treatment of peasants. Second, the revival of the ancient assemblies. Third, revival of the rule of law. Fourthly, the reform of the Barusu to exclude underage persons and non-human animals. Fifthly, fiscal reforms, including... Hold your tongue, glorious Uncle Juarama! A waspish female voice broke in, as high-pitched as Nululu'u's, but sounding several decades older and making glorious Uncle Juarama sound like spawn of Suwara. The woman from whom this voice issued forth was, in fact, only in her 40s and had a tall but perfectly orthodox hairdo with the imperial red stripes, most of which, however, was covered by her headdress. She was clad in the imperial crimson, and with a full complement of rubies, amethysts, emeralds, and sundry other gems. She held a jewel-encrusted parasol of red, yellow, and blue silk. It was Mpu'u's elder sister, glorious Princess Yuyeja, who was more intelligent than most of the others, but hated the poor and was viscerally opposed to any social or political reform. This somber occasion is not the time, not that there ever is a time, for your detestable treasonous lies. She made a scornful gesture. You ought to have been banned from the meeting altogether. If I have my way, if you were hoping to be emperor, blood will be shed before that happens. I hope it's your blood. Out of a commendable sense of delicacy, however, she omitted to add that she would on the whole have preferred for him to be tortured to death, horribly. The Garaji coughed, scratched a pimple awkwardly, and raised a polite hand. If glorious imperial family will allow, this lowly servant has a tragic announcement to make. It took, in fact, quite a while to get everyone to quiet down. Ju'arama was still trying to expound his philosophy to Yuyeja, who was screaming blue murder. Munululu'u was being caustic to Baranji and Ekwekwe the Younger, and this last was as usual being oblivious. Finally, Mbawa's glorious father, Prince Mpu'u, whose expression by now resembled that of badly rotting millet, banged his red goat-shaped princely staff on the floor and said, "Can we please listen to what excellent Garaji has to say?" When everyone had more or less stopped sniping at each other, the Garaji made his tragic, but not terribly tragic, announcement. "Alas," he exclaimed, almost convincingly. "Alas, that I had to miss another boat race for this," he thought, but durst not say it out loud. "I have requested your glorious presences for an occasion of sorrow. My grief knows no bounds, for the flower of righteousness is withered, the height of glory has been laid low, the mountain of majesty has crumbled into dust, the fount of knowledge has dried up, the liberator of humanity is mourned by humanity, the torch of virtue is extinguished, the heir to the sacred presence is absent, the jewel of splendor is darkened, the embodiment of sacrifice has been sacrificed, the leader of the straight path shall lead no more, the light of truth has willed to cease shining upon the earth." He began to writhe on the floor as if in agony, in a ritual expression of grief at the death of Exalted. It was jolly uncomfortable, of course, but then, so was the whole boiling. Pako'e began to snicker, and, at a gesture from Mpu'u, was immediately slapped by one of the guards. "What an idiot," thought Mbawa. "I didn't think he was that stupid, even if Exalted Grandfather wasn't a very good ruler." "How durst you?" said Pako'e. "I had dared lay hands upon glorious him before." "He durst because I commanded it," said Mpu'u, banging his staff again. "You will observe proper forms in public, especially on solemn occasions." Pako'e looked sullen, but had to bow his head and say, "I beg glorious father's pardon." But as soon as he thought no one was looking, he waved his left arm rudely behind his back. "Granted," said Mpu'u wearily. "Now we may continue without any more childish interruptions." The Garaji coughed again and asked Malala Ama to give the blessing. Malala Ama rose and did his best to stand erect and pretend he didn't have a stoop. May the soul of blessed Exalted blossom in paradise," began the Yaji, making the gesture of 3, the gesture of 9, and the gesture of the circle. The sermon continued for several minutes before finally ending. May the fragrance of blessed exalted blossom beautify paradise. Not only Pakote, but even the serious Mbawa had difficulty keeping from laughing at this conclusion. Blessed exalted had hardly been what one would call fragrant. Thank you, blessed, said Mpu'u blandly. And you as well, excellent Garaji. And now we'd perhaps best get on with it. Can't have an empire without an emperor, even my glorious son Pakote probably knows that. Excellent Garaji, would you? The Garaji bowed and continued, and then there's a break. Let's see, but I don't think I've been talking that long. How long have we been at it?
It's only been about 11 minutes, I think.
Yeah, let me continue a bit further, even though we're in a different section now. News of Akwekwe's death had not yet reached the province of Ihalamu, or indeed anywhere on the Isle of Oro, for by ancient prescription it was not to be made public until the new emperor had been crowned. Usually the emperor proclaimed an heir, but Akwekwe hadn't bothered. It was therefore vital not to let the emperor's death be known before the competent authorities, i.e. the imperial family and other bigwigs, had come up with an heir. The less provincials knew, the better. You might get provinces splitting off, or the nobility bringing forward pretenders right, left, and center. No civil wars, please. So the topic of conversation at the camp around Serthaton was not so much the emperor as Lady Margaret. The chiefs and some of the soldiers liked to amuse themselves by describing what they would do with or to her. It wasn't pleasant, but the main concern of the Sandoranians was Lady Margaret's offer to free slaves who defected. This was a bit beyond the beyonds. The armor wasn't exactly a cauldron of radical social experimentation, and the officers in particular were rather shocked. This is going to destroy the foundations of society and good governance, exploded Bruno during one of the meetings whereby he and Daraimi periodically tortured themselves and each other. He'd had a new toupee made, but it wasn't very good. It was too small, and was even more prone to slipping off than the old one was. Don't worry, boo-boo boy, said Daraimi, taking a sip of his mango wine, and as usual not offering Bruno any. This girl would be dead meat, spoilt dead meat, in a week's time. And as for defections, I'd like to see them try. I'd really like to see them try. His eyebrows twitched disgustingly. We'd better send out a warning, said Bruno, wrinkling his nose. He knew well enough what obscene rubbish was going through his colleague's head. Better to prevent crime than to have to go through the bother of punishing it. He'd long given up trying to get Daraimi to observe basic civility, so he pretended not to hear the bit about Boo-Boo Boy. And since he knew Daraimi never offered any refreshment, he always bought his own. The quality was not what he was used to, but it was better than watching Daraimi eat with that obnoxious smirk on his face. So he savored his box conwari and rice as if it were a repast of imperial quality. Done, said Daraimi. I've established some pretty serious penalties for any kind of laxity, let alone actual defection. I can hardly wait to hand out some punishments. He'd graduated from eyebrow tripping to the sawing motion with his right hand. Always a bad sign, Bruno knew. I can well believe that, said the governor darkly. He found punishment an annoyance, even if a necessary one, and didn't share Daraimi's gusto. The purpose of punishment isn't punishment, you know. It's punishing crimes. He said this with a sententious air of one who is uttering an arcane truth. and tapped his fingers like a schoolmaster. The purpose of punishment is fun, said Doraimi with a guffaw. Dismissed. Good, said Bruno, and flounced out of Doraimi's tent and into his own. Let me see. Okay. As a result of Doraimi's orders, masters increased their vigilance, and they were already pretty vigilant. Slaves were terrified. Some of the braver ones had furtive conversations amongst themselves, debating what they should do. Some were eager to defect. Many durst not. A few were genuinely loyal to their masters. A handful did indeed manage to escape, but if caught, they were subject to an even crueler punishment than usual. Doraimi had outdone himself in sadism, and this was a time he would remember fondly for the rest of his days. One of the aforementioned furtive conversations was being held near the well one evening, when it was hoped that the masters were busy with their sarangis. They say the lady is going to free us, said one slave in a whisper. We can at last hope. I don't believe it. No one ever frees us, said another. They've told us things like this before, said a third. It never comes to anything. What's freedom? Inquired a fourth, taking a short break from sweeping the west slave tent. You need to stop talking about these things, said a fifth. They'll find out and punish us. The first speaker waited till nighttime, then gathered together some friends and made a run for it. But the guards were especially vigilant that night, and only 3 of the slaves escaped. The remaining 4 fugitives were put to death in unspeakably cruel and unpleasant ways, which the entire camp and their slaves were invited to attend. The executions were accompanied by a charming orchestra of drums and pipes, played by the company band. Nothing like a little torture and sex and music, Doraimi thought, as he fondled an unhappy-looking Sarangi. Bruno wrinkled his nose in distaste and didn't think much of the music either. He wished he were back in the city of Tharmalon and had never come here. The exhibition had the desired effect, however, and no slave durst try to escape again for some time. In fact, it succeeded too well for Doraimi's taste. If no one tried to escape, what pretext would there be to have them tortured? Luckily, with slaves, there was always something one could punish them for. And I think that will do. Coming up next week, we'll continue the Imperials.
I'm loving the characterization here. All this whole purpose of punishment as fun. You know?
As usual, it's the bad guys.
Yeah, I mean, executions make for such a pleasant social outing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I should know. I've got a few planned.
Well, yeah, in your gulag.
Yeah.
We don't call them gulags, of course, because that's socialism. But it's the same general idea.
Yes. Speaking of which, Uncle Joe Arama sounds that. Let's not kid ourselves. It's Stalin.
Oh, absolutely. That guy's got Stalin written all over him in big black letters. Yeah.
Is he like the actual Stalin or the propaganda myth of Stalin that has been propped up by both sides?
Actually, in real life, he's too boring to be Stalin.
Honestly, Stalin, he loved him some boring work.
Okay, well, fair enough. Maybe he is
that. For the longest time, I was trying to put together a lukewarm defense of Stalin, just to cut through the propaganda. Because we have this idea of him as this Hydra head of conspiracy with a finger in every pot, insidious, controlling everything. And it's odd because the Russians have actually latched onto that propaganda just because it makes them sound awesome. But if you actually look through the history and read a little closer, it becomes pretty clear that Stalin's basically the only person, actually trying to keep this bag of cats in reasonable order. Everyone else is just pulling it in every which way. And I mean, sure enough, the moment he leaves, they start eating each other.
Yeah, although I think Khrushchev is probably my favorite communist leader of Russia, of the Soviet Union. At least he's amusing.
Well, I mean, if you were an ordinary person in the USSR, he was certainly the person who improved your life in the most material terms, which socialism is generally concerned with. But even he's not above that whole stuff. I looked into his secret speech, and it's a whole bunch of stuff saying, hey, Stalin, a bunch of all these different scandals. He makes a big deal of the doctors' affair, the Delo Vrachey, where the doctors up in Leningrad were getting arrested for treason and stuff, and he tries to blame Stalin for that affair. But if you actually look through Stalin's personal diaries, Stalin never bought it for an instant. He knew that whole affair was bullshit, but he was never able to speak out.
Odd.
I know. And even just look up the people who were leading the charge. I think one of the guys had already been kicked out of some bureau for making shit up. This thing was a complete hack job, and basically everyone knew it, but nobody wanted to be the first one to say it.
I would have expected Stalin to just say, "Hey guys, cut it out," or head on spike kind of thing, or whatever the communist equivalent of head on spike is. Firing squads, I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah, Giorama is kind of a policy wonk type.
Yeah, and a box of essays.
He has a box of essays. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to bend his ear for a while. Or maybe hook him up with Lady Margaret and her idea about freeing the slaves.
Yeah.
Give him, just sweeten the deal a little bit more for the slaves. Ooh, I really did love that turn of phrase, the cauldron of social experimentation. I love that. That's a great line.
Yeah. Thank you. Where was that? Cauldron had gone too far. Is that what I said?
I think it was shortly after they mentioned Lady Margaret.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. They thought it had gone a bit too far.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and I'm not entirely sure what you're doing with the grammar, but many durst not is not correct.
I beg your pardon?
Yeah, durst is only supposed to be used with thou.
No, you're thinking of darst. Durst is a past tense of dare.
But but durst is specifically for thou.
I don't think so. I think durst is correct. I think it's past tense. Dare, it's an archaic past tense. If we're darest, that would be wrong. Oh, I'm spelling it Durst.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't
fight.
This is it. We're splitting up now. This is I'm not your friend anymore. I'm not your friend anymore, Oracle chap. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you defy my grammatical wisdom?
Okay, I'm looking through the examples in Wiktionary right now. The best man among them durst not. But that's singular. That's third person singular. That thou durst. That's second person. Who durst. That's another singular. No, was there among who durst nor the light. That's all singular. Idurst.
Whoops, sorry.
Not the first. Others will.
So essentially, Balerion was
And
saying,
if you don't like it, no offense, but you have boring taste, and I don't want to be friends with you.
Perhaps. I can't get a citation for use as a third person plural. That's my issue.
But if you can use it for everything else, you can use it for that too.
Possibly.
It'd be odd for that exception.
I mean, let's face it. There's no. There's probably not going to be a long dead grammar Nazi gonna rise up from the grave just to say, actually, or I don't know. Maybe I'm channeling that guy's spirit right now.
Yeah, maybe this guy will. Maybe the guy will turn up though. Maybe he'll turn up in the comments. That would be a riot.
Yeah, perhaps.
Let's see.
Anything else?
Okay, let's see. Done. Let's see. Social.
any question, any feedback from us? Any particular feedback that you would like?
Whatever you want to say, it's fine, within reason.
Fair enough. Needs more lesbian sex scenes.
Well, I mean, that goes without saying,
Yeah, basically this novel sucks because there are no lesbian sex scenes.
I'm obviously joking.
No, you're serious. And if you're not, then I am. What blazes did I do that? Yeah.
I like the characterization. I'm kind of feeling a little bit I'm not sure how the plot is progressing necessarily, unless that's not really the point of it. I'm just trying to figure out where we're going exactly.
Did you get the bit about Equeque dying, or was that too?
Oh, I did not necessarily get that. Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, because the Garaji, remember he was writhing on the floor about how the flower of wisdom is blah 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 blah, and will blossom no more, and blah blah, and the whatever of whatever is whatevering, and all that stuff. That was a long-winded way of saying Equeque, as Kolfted.
Oh, I didn't necessarily get that. No. Maybe I'm just dumb. But maybe just make it a little bit more clear. That's the only feedback I could get on that score.
Let's see. Where did my pen go? Yeah. Okay, I have two pens here. One of them probably works. To write myself a note. Really short chapter this is. Quick way death clear. Yeah, because he was poisoned last chapter. I think it was last chapter.
Oh, maybe I forgot about that. That could be yes.
It's been a long time. Yeah, that's what all that rot was about. The fountain of righteousness is dried up, and all that other rot. That was what that was all about. Because that's the formula. When the emperor dies, you've got to make it's really tragic, even if you're actually quite glad that he's gone. Yeah, so that happened, and that's why all these Imperials are getting together. And what happened in the other one was Daraimi was a sadist.
Mm,
That's what happened in the other section.
I see.
So yeah, these bits are usually the most fun bits, because as soon as I get to the protagonists, I get a little. Well, I shouldn't judge.
Is
Your
Lady
creations,
Margaret
of course you
the
can judge them.
protagonist? Is she the one?
Sorry, what's the question?
Is Lady Margaret one of the protagonists?
Yeah, she's supposed to be.
All right.
Lady Margaret, Barama, and Muku are supposed to be the protagonists.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a terrible joke, but have I shown you the Disney plots to kill main character or skit from Studio C? There's one thing. It's like, how can you kill me? I am the protagonist's father. But Sir Eric, this is Disney. I'm a Disney parent. This is a Disney movie. You murderers.
I don't think we've seen that.
It's
Yeah, I'm fairly certain we haven't.
Maybe we'll show it at the end because I think that you guys would get a good kick out of it.
Yeah.
Anything else, Valerian?
You tell me.
No, I think that's good. I think there's some. I think that it's got some good stuff. I'm very interested to see where it goes. If the Emperor's dead, that means that there's some really cool dynamics. The only thing I would just like have it a little bit more clear that he died. I had maybe some more internal monologue, I suppose.
Yeah, maybe it'll be clearer in the next section.
Maybe it's clearer when you actually read the book rather than listening to it.
Yeah, maybe because maybe the names are a little less difficult, or maybe they're more difficult. I don't know. If you read it, I don't know. Okay.
All right. So is it my turn now?
Yep.
I believe so.
All right. Okay. So this is a bit of a longer one, but this is more of a passage of time chapter. We're going to see over the course of a few months how Shenna's first project to automate that factory we saw earlier is going to go off. So we begin in chapter 36, A Year's Difference. After a few more days of uneventful review, Shenna found herself in a grand conference hall in Master Angara's Gold River headquarters, presenting her final designs before the consortium. The meeting passed quite smoothly, there being no substantial objections and much interest in the further potential applications of Shenna's constructs. By the end of the gathering, Master Angara had directed Irval and Sebastian to allocate a budget of at least 2 Raj for Shenna to proceed with the next stage of her project. Arrangements were also made for Shenna to make use of the unoccupied 3rd floor of Hendrika's building as a workshop. As before, Master Angara continued to let Hendrika do most of the talking. It was now clearer than ever that she was soon to inherit his position in the consortium. Once the meeting was concluded, Shenna and Sebastian set off upon a tour of the mortuaries and morgues in the city to establish working relationships with the operators before beginning the project. Although Shenna knew their locations, she had never actually visited any of them before. Magistress Karna had always handled the matter of acquiring the bodies herself. That was a good thing, Shenna decided. Her appearance would not serve to immediately tip off Karna and the Magisterium that someone else was making use of undead constructs. Unless they actually ran into Karna herself, a possibility that Shenna did not relish at all. The first morgue was located in Gold River and was close enough to be reached on foot. There, squeezed between two facades of marble and gold, Shenna and Sebastian found a small building of featureless gray stone, like a patch of blighted grass between two luxurious gardens where none dared plant. The iron-bound door was answered after a single knock by a tall, thin, sallow-faced man in a black tunic and trousers who invited the two guests inside at once Shenna explained her purpose. The three of them soon sat in a cramped stone antechamber, beneath the light of a single red lamp, discussing Shenna's plans. The morgue operator, he had not volunteered his name, and Shenna was in no great hurry to learn it, at once saw the profit in Shenna's constructs. He explained that the morgue was supported primarily through charitable donations and partly through the sale of the garments and personal effects of the unclaimed, both of these having proved terribly unsteady sources of income in the past. The idea of a much more regular stream of revenue appealed to the morgue operator, and he offered a price of 5 bodies to a shem. Shenna readily accepted the offer, having planned for a far higher price for human remains. With the deal struck, the morgue operator led Shenna and Sebastian into the main hall, where hundreds of bodies lay stacked upon row after row of wooden shelves, each one wrapped in a white shroud, turned to a lurid red by the lamps lurking in the air above. It was chill, dry, and haunted with the odor of distilled alcohol and lye. "There's an examination theater in the back," the morgue operator said in a voice like dry, crumbling leather. "Shall I pull out a few of those long unclaimed bodies for you to look over?" "Please do," Shenna said. It was a trivial matter to inspect the bodies. All that was truly necessary was to check for major industry injuries such as broken bones or missing limbs or gangrene. Within minutes, Shenna had drawn up a list of bodies to be transferred to her new workshop at some future date. With their purpose fulfilled, Shenna thanked the morgue operator for his time and arranged to send Sebastian in 2 days' time to begin transferring the cadavers to her workshop. "Incidentally," Shenna asked as the morgue operator escorted them back to the entrance, "has a woman from the Magisterium ever called at this location?" "Not during my tenure," the morgue operator shrugged. Shenna and Sebastian spent the rest of the day crisscrossing Acre to inspect the mortuaries. There were 3 in the Blackstones, 2 in the Redstones, 1 on the border between Lakeshore and Taylor's Landing, 2 in the East Port by the mouth of the Red River, 5 in the Old City, and nothing in Mudtown or Clearwater. Each one followed roughly in the layout of the first one: a small antechamber in the front for reception and administration, followed by a vast open vault to store the bodies, and an examination theater in the very back. The operators were a diverse bunch, each one being more or less ordinary or strange in their own way, though all of them shared the pale skin that told of a distinct lack of sunlight in their profession. Curiously, none of the morgue operators could recall Magistress Karna visiting their establishment. Although the reason became clear enough, however, when they reached one of the morgues in the Old City and found a very familiar-looking barge moored outside, complete with the same undead boatman with the shrouded face standing motionless atop the pilot stand. Evidently, Karna saw no reason to travel any further than absolutely necessary to source her cadavers. Shenna ultimately decided not to visit any of the morgues in the Old City to avoid the chance of any awkward reunions. The tour of Acre took all day, with only a brief stop at Benham's Bakery in the Old City for a quick lunch. When the day was done, Sebastian returned Shenna to her apartment and, just before departing, presented her with a single lath. This, he explained, was her salary, paid out in weekly installments of 1 lath each for greater convenience. Shenna stashed the coin in a small chest in the bottom drawer of her desk, with the rest of her money, and after a quick dinner, sat down to draw up a full account of her finances. She had been terribly profligate with money over the past few days, and her 30 lath bonus at hiring had shrunk at an alarming rate. Not counting her salary, only 4 lath remained in her coin box, the rest having been consumed by rent, food, furniture, and housewares and gardening supplies. she would need to begin taking serious efforts to rein in her spending habits for the coming weeks, and she started by at once setting 2 lath aside for the next month's rent, her most pressing expense. The next day, Sebastian brought Shenna back to Hendrika's building and escorted her up to her new workshop on the 3rd floor. The space was nearly deserted, apart from a single table by the north side window and a number of old storage crates that had not yet been removed. Shenna looked the place over, considering the best locations to set up bookshelves, supply chests, racks to store completed constructs, and marveling at the doorway in the far corner that opened onto a convenient pulley lift in the walkway below. She would get much use out of that. Sebastian then brought Shenna on a tour of Lakeshore to purchase paper, brushes, ink ingredients, and other necessary supplies. Shenna initially planned to make small purchases and explained to Sebastian that she was trying to conserve her money. "Oh, don't worry about any of that," Sebastian assured her. "Just keep a running tally of how much you spend, and the consortium will reimburse it all." Shenna ended up spending nearly 2 lath on supplies, enough to last her a good long while, she hoped. After dropping them off in the workshops, Sebastian brought Shenna to Master Angara's headquarters, where her money was restored in full. As she returned home, Shenna wondered if she might be able to strike a similar arrangement with Madame Perel concerning the garden. The next day, the work really began. Shenna arrived at the workshop early, gathered all her notes together, and set herself to brewing ink while she waited for Sebastian to come by with the first of the bodies. Sebastian went about unloading the cargo and hoisting them up the lift to the workshop, while Shenna busied herself drawing the sigils. It was slow, repetitive work, but nothing Shenna hadn't done before. By midday, 10 constructs were lying beneath white sheets upon a hastily constructed wooden rack, and Shenna was enjoying a well-earned lunch in the downstairs lounge. 10 more bodies arrived soon after lunch, and by day's end, 10 more constructs lay covered on the racks. Shenna went home that night tired, but it was a good tired, the kind of tired that told of a day well spent and a rest well earned. The days soon fell into a rhythm. Sebastian would collect Shenna at her apartment each morning and drop her off at the workshop. She would work until noon, break for lunch, then work until sunset, after which Sebastian would take her home again. Shenna took 2 days off each week, one of which she spent with Iseldra in the garden. After 2 weeks, the work began to slow down. It wasn't due to a lack of bodies. The morgue still reported plenty of unclaimed cadavers on hand. Rather, it was a growing lack of storage that slowed Shenna's pace. 200 constructs now lay on the racks, enough to fill an entire manufactory work floor. Ready to work, yet wanting for magic. That would need to wait on Hendrika and her dynamo, as she had taken to calling her new machine. The wait lasted only a few days. At the consortium's twice-weekly meeting, Hendrika proudly announced that the full-size version of her dynamo was up and running. Master Angara, in the meanwhile, had negotiated an agreement with a local sawmill to run the dynamo at night when the mill was not in operation. The first fully charged crystals were expected sometime early the next morning. At this news, a carefully arranged plan was put into motion. Rather than work on any new constructs yet, Shenna spent the morning giving detailed instructions to a company of workmen about which of her completed constructs she wanted moved into the first floor in preparation for transport to the manufactory. Once the instructions were given and the labor begun, Shenna returned to her apartment to catch a little sleep through the day with the help of an herbal sleeping draught. Sebastian returned to collect her at sundown. When Shenna arrived back at her workshop, not only were all her constructs waiting for her on the first floor, exactly as she had requested, but Devram and Derval were also waiting outside the workshop with a pair of cargo barges. A second company of hired laborers worked by lamplight to load the constructs onto the barges, after which they set off for the manufactory. Master Jaren was waiting for them when they arrived, and directed the laborers to the third-story work floor where they deposited the constructs. Then it was back to Shenna's workshop for another pickup. 5 trips in total they ran before all 200 constructs had been transported. Shenna and Derval worked through the night to arrange all the constructs at the looms in preparations for the delivery of magic, while explaining their workings to a small group of foremen who were slated to oversee the smooth operation of the work floor. Despite their clear reticence to work with corpses, the foremen seemed quite eager to learn their new responsibilities, and conversation quickly revealed exactly why. These foremen had been promised a substantial raise from 10 chalk per day up to 20, and they chatted amongst themselves in their free time about all the things that they would spend their new fortunes upon. It was just sort of sunrise when Hendrika arrived with a crate of crystals all freshly charged from her dynamo. Shenna then gathered the foremen together and demonstrated the charging process before letting the foremen to try it for themselves. Soon, the work floor would be in full operation. As the foreman went about charging the remaining constructs, Shenna heard a sudden commotion from out in the stairwell. She left the foremen to their work and poked her head out of the doorway. The stairwell was a scene of utter chaos. A great press of working girls was trying to make their way up to the third floor, while a small group of stout carpenters held them back. The working girls were shouting and hollering, demanded to be let in so that they might work, while behind the carpenters, Master Jaren stood at the top of the stairwell, announcing, to whoever could hear over the din, that everyone who had previously worked on the third floor had now been dismissed. Further below, Shenna noticed a few other girls fighting to be admitted into the second-story work floor, while other girls forced them away. It was a pitiful scene. As Shenna looked out across the roiling sea of angry faces, one stood out in particular. A scrawny girl with ragged brown hair and a small scar across her eyebrow. Their eyes met, and the memory of a sudden slap burst across Shenna's mind. The girl raised a bruised finger and pointed it directly at Shenna, and her scream pierced the din of the riot. "You did this! This is because of you!" Shenna ducked back out of the stairwell and leaned against a wall to steady her nerves. She looked out across the work floor, now filled with dead bodies working obediently away. Dead bodies who asked for no wages, who had no families to feed or shelter, who needed no food nor drink, nor even time to sleep and rest their closed violet eyes. Who would keep working until they collapsed into heaps of bones and desiccated skin so long as magic continued to flow. Who would never blame or accuse Shenna either for pulling them away from the restful slumber of death, nor for casting them aside when the time came to replace them. "What's going on out there?" Irval asked. Shenna jumped at his voice. She had not noticed his approach. The workers," she said. "They're... I don't believe anyone bothered to inform the working girls beforehand. They're quite angry." That is inconvenient," Hendrika said, joining the two of them together. "In any case, I believe we're done here. We don't need to stick around any longer." "How do we get back down?" Shenna asked. "Not to worry," Hendrika said, putting a comforting hand on Shenna's shoulder. "I'm sure we'll figure something out." "I've got a plan," Irval said with a twinkle in his eye. "Just follow my lead." Shenna and Hendrika crept up to the entrance of the stairwell and watched as Irval dashed out and whispered something in Master Jaren's ear. When Master Jaren gave a quick nod and said something inaudible, Irval gestured for the others to join him. Shenna gathered up a fistful of her skirt and dashed to meet Irval, with Hendrika close behind her, and the trio clambered up the stairs to the fourth floor. There, Irval crossed to the broad windows along the back wall and grabbed one of the cargo pulleys and, after testing its strength, handed it to Shenna. "Step on," he said. "I'll lower you down." And so, hardly able to believe what she was about to attempt, Shenna took hold of the rope and, with only a look of encouragement from Hendrika, carefully stepped onto the pulley. She clasped the ropes tight as Irval lowered her down out of sight of the handful of bewildered spinner girls already at work on the floor. Shenna looked down at the loading area below, watching as it drew steadily closer, until at long last she stepped off the pulley and onto solid stone again. Shenna turned her head up and watched the pulley ascending to rejoin Irval at the 4th floor. Irval caught the device in his hand, handed it to Hendrika, and began to lower her down. Once Hendrika had dismounted, the pulley returned to the 4th floor, and Irval lowered himself down. Shenna would have been amazed at the sight, if not for the knowledge that she had done the very same only moments before. Fortunately, Hendrika had tied up her pleasure barge some distance away from the manufactuary entrance, and they were able to slip away without being noticed. Shenna directed the way back to her apartment, climbed the steps, and immediately went to bed, much to the confusion of Athanasius, who had only just woken up. In the weeks that followed, Shenna repeated the process again for each of the other 2 work floors. Mercifully, installing the constructs didn't prove nearly so disorderly the 2nd or 3rd time. Indeed, Master Jaren spoke of a sharp increase in absenteeism among the working girls when Shenna saw him next. Nobody was willing to work anymore, it seemed. Especially not when they knew that they could soon be replaced anyways. The entire process took just over 2 months to fully run its course. Springtime came into full bloom, creeping ever closer to the threshold of summer. In the meanwhile, Shenna continued to draw her salary, carefully setting aside enough to cover rent and food. The garden gradually took shape as funds became available and as Iseldra learned the ways of gardening. Shenna and Elira also got into the habit of sharing breakfast in Shenna's apartment on her day off. Before long, Shenna stood before the entire consortium at their twice-weekly meeting, announcing that her project had come to a successful conclusion. She summarized the process from beginning to end, touching on the advantages gained and the lessons learned along the way. Master Jaren had generously provided the data about magic usage, and the numbers showed that production costs had been cut by a substantial amount.
A resounding success, Master Angara said, as Shenna took her seat again. And since this news has put us all in a good mood, I believe this is the right time for me to make an announcement of my own. It is my intention to retire from my duties with the consortium.
A quick ripple of murmurs passed through the conference hall at the news.
As to my successor, Master Angara went on, I believe we can all agree that Hendrika is the natural choice for director of the consortium. She has repeatedly demonstrated a keen mind for business, a talent for leadership, and an uncommon ability to draw out the best in all of us. And I shall rest easy, knowing that I leave the consortium in her capable hands.
All at once, the conference hall came alive with cheers and applause. Hendrika's face turned red as the sun set, as a torrent of congratulations began to pour out upon her. Once the din settled back down and he could be heard once again, Master Angara continued.
In order to celebrate this momentous occasion, I'm inviting you all to a celebratory evening at my private estate tomorrow night.
Shenna's eyes flickered to Sebastian, who met her gaze with a knowing smile and a nod. Shenna sent back a grin of her own. Sebastian's judgment had been entirely correct. As the conference hall was emptying out, Master Angara pulled Shenna aside and invited her to join him for a quick moment. Shenna agreed, and after arranging for Sebastian to meet him at the entrance, followed Master Angara down the hallway to his office. Age lay heavily upon the man. The thudding of his heavy walking stick came slower than Shenna had heard before, and his mantle of thick black fur could no longer conceal the drooping of his shoulders. There could be little doubt that the man had more than earned his retirement. Shenna offered to get the door for Master Angara when they reached his office, but he politely refused and began fumbling with his keys. Once the door was open, he crossed directly to his desk, reached for a drawer, and pulled out a coin string.
A bonus for a job well done, Master Angara said, handing the coin string to Shenna. The first of many, I expect. Shenna's eyes widened as she took the coin string. It held only 3 items. Not coins, indeed, but glittering diamonds bound in gold and silver. Shenna had only seen their like once before. 3, Raj? Shenna said, barely able to believe the bewildering fortune in her hands. Indeed, Master Angara said. I had a look through the numbers, and I calculated the total annual savings. Your undead constructs are set to save us 3 Raj per year. I believe it's fitting that you should see a suitable bonus for such good work. A year of projected savings seems fitting enough. Wouldn't you agree? Of course, Shenna said, slipping the 3 Raj onto her own coin string. It's just that this is far larger than my salary. As well it should be, Master Angara said. I've always found bonuses to be far more motivating as a means of payment. They serve to better drive people to action and innovation and invention, to make them more competitive, and we need competitive people in our line of work. Very true, Shenna nodded. She was certainly feeling freshly motivated for whatever her next project might hold. When she joined Sebastian at the entrance, he surprised her with another payment. This one, 21 Lath and 30 Shem. This, he explained, was a dividend payout. 4 times a year, a portion of the profits earned by the consortium were distributed to everyone who held a share in the consortium. And since Shenna had received 10 shares when she had been hired, she shared this bounty as well. It was hardly comparable to the 3 Raj that Shenna had just received for her bonus, but still a more than welcome addition to her growing fortune. Sebastian was quite impressed when Shenna showed him her bonus, and if he was at all jealous of her success, he did not show it. I just knew there was something special about you, Shenna, he said. You should definitely think about seeking a promotion. Oh, definitely, Shenna agreed. Now that she'd proven her worth to the consortium, she was more than ready to seek out new responsibilities and the opportunities that came with them. Back at the apartment, Shenna deposited her funds into the coin box below her desk. Her dividend payout alone was double the value of all the other coins in her possession, with more to spare, to say nothing of those 3 glittering diamond Raj. And to think that only 2 months earlier she had gone to the trouble of carefully budgeting out her expenses. Had she known that she had been due for such a bounty, she wouldn't have even bothered. As Shenna closed the coin box, the sound of fluttering wings drew her attention to a window. Athanasius was perched there with something in his beak, a small orb of purple with a slight touch of pink. A songberry, perhaps the very first one of the season. As she took the berry and plopped it into her mouth, a sudden thought came upon Shenna. It's been a year. Shenna sat down to work through some quick dates, and sure enough, this was it. The very day 1 year ago that she had arrived in Acre without a single Harrick to her name. And now, 12 months later, here she was, with more money than she knew what to do with, and the promise of even more to come, and all before the coming of her 17th summer. What a difference a single year could make. And that is the end.
I like the progress the story is making, for sure.
Thanks.
Capitalism saved Shenna, so it's good.
Yeah. It's not doing a whole much for those working girls in the factories, though.
No one cares about them anyway. They don't even have names. They're not even named characters. No one cares about them.
Yeah. That's fair. I haven't given the girl with the scarred eyebrow a name yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I think do employers even give bonuses anymore? I don't think
Very, very rarely, but yes.
I don't think I've ever got a bonus.
I get a patronage dividend at my work because I'm a partial owner of the cooperative.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a bit unusual, but yeah. Yeah. Also, it is so important that employers have flexibility, which is why it's useful to have a lot of dead people around. So we can just say, hey, if you can always replace you with someone dead, if you don't like our conditions, you can always replace you with somebody dead. So hey.
Yeah, you can always be automated.
Yeah. I mean, we could kill you and bring you back as a dead person without any pay.
Yeah. One thing I was concerned about with this particular chapter is if it's dragging.
No,
Because
I actually like this kind of thing.
All right. That's good. That's encouraging.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not. I mean, maybe a little less lively than the last one was, because the last one we had all those ladies and we had Terracine like, I don't have. Oh, shut up, my darling. Blah, blah, blah. So.
Yes.
So
I need to find out another way to include her in the story.
Yeah.
You know, before I get to all the other stuff. But yeah, that's good to hear. Anything else?
Is Alara going to turn communist too?
That would be telling, wouldn't it?
I guess.
Yes. Well, anyhow.
So Sebastian and Shenna going to have an affair now?
Funny you should ask. We're going to see something. We should see something come of that in the next chapter.
Ah.
It's a long one, though. I'm going to have to split it up, of course. But we should see a little hint of things to come in there.
Oh. And is since Shenna's hanging out with Alara, is she also going to meet Garrett again at some point?
Who?
Garrett, that guy.
Gareth?
Yeah.
He'll show up eventually.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. They're still engaged. I don't think they've even met since they've been engaged.
Oh well, you don't have to actually.
It's just sort of a thing that just happens in the background, you know.
Yeah, you don't even have to meet people in order to marry them necessarily. Mm-hmm. You can always just use a proxy.
Yeah, it's like a Shan Chan wedding from Wheel of Time. You know, all that's necessary is for one person to say, "This person is my husband" 3 times. And then as long as the other person within a year and a day says the same thing about the other person, they're married. And they don't even have to have met.
Convenient.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very big plot point in one of the later books.
I actually hear some of the fans have done Shan Chan weddings like that.
Oh god.
That is actually kind of hilarious.
And heartwarming in a way.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, hey, James Knightington, you showed up.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So did the other chap, and I figured out some of his lingo. Ayin Borad means I'm bored.
Yeah, I kind of get the feeling that this guy's mentally deficient.
Is he an actual human or some kind of weird AI?
I have no idea.
All right, fair enough.
I just kind of have the perspective of Oh, he's an idiot.
Well,
Or at the very least, he's a bit of an idiot.
well, at least we got some kind of an audience.
Hey, he's given us a view.
Yeah.
He's earned our appreciation for that much at least. Let the kid be.
Yeah.
I know. I just find him incredibly annoying.
Anyhow.
I glorify his sacred name.
Will we be seeing Valerian at Melvin Sherman's beckoning alien rebels dancing naked?
Not dancing naked, but maybe.
Dance naked in Bacchanania. Live like the Romans.
Yeah. Honey for Bears. Is that an actual book?
Honey for Bears.
Doesn't really matter, I guess.
Actual book, yeah.
Good.
Anthony Burgess, same guy who did Clockwork Orange.
Okay. Clockwork Orange. I never read that, but I saw the film dubbed in Italian several years ago.
Yeah, the film is kind of horrifying.
Yeah. Kind of a downer, yeah.
All right. So, done. You got stuff for us this week?
Yep. Let me pull it up. Alright, so Lords of Eternal Night, Chapter 14. So, as of this point in time, the armies of Olyntius have been pushed back and are retreating toward a place called... Sorry, you're saying?
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Mithricard.
It sounds about right.
Carry on. Sorry.
And the Azareth have now are retreating back to their fortress of the Dark Mouth, which acts as a barrier between the enemy and the rest of the continent. So, and in order to try and defend against the bad guys, Mool and Farah have moved to try and get to their army so they can reinforce both Kurufir and Amora up in the Dark Mouth. All right, so chapter 14, the Necromancer. Kurufir and the rest of the remnants of his army and the Umlari rushed into the gates of the Dark Mouth, the defensive artillery engines flinging large rocks and ballista bolts at the sheep pursuing them. Grunting, he summoned up another large army of spirits and hurled them against the Sidhe. The pale ghost smashed into the enemy and held them back, but the sheep burst through their ranks and kept on pushing toward the Dark Mouth, drawing on the power of his artifacts. Kurufir thrust out his hand and created a barrier of spikes formed from black ice between the two armies. Feeling drained, Kurufir kept reinforcing the barrier until everyone was inside the castle. Breathing in and out, he threw himself into the umbriel and flew to the top of the wall, then landed on the battlements. "My prince!" One of the soldiers on duty, a captain with a silver moon and fist on his lapel, saluted. "Lady Amora has already informed us of the death of the other two Azareth. We're ready to defend this Pity from the she and the filthy fish buggers. How many men are within the walls? Kurafir said quickly. Each of the 4 fortresses has 1,000 troops each, and another 5,000 and inside the main keep. Not enough, Kurafir pushed his fist. They're coming for us in force. They won't retreat when we hit back. Indeed, sire. The captain glanced toward the she. The enemy army began moving backward as the ice dissipated, clearly not wanting to assault the walls until they prepared some siege engines or other reinforcements. Calmly, Kurafir leaned against the wall, tapping his clawed gauntlets against the stones. Prepare the fortress for war. We will kill them until they give up, or we drown in their blood. The captain made a face, which Kurafir ignored. They will not take this fortress while I stand at the defense. Of course, sire. However, the man's face said, but who's going to defend the fortress from you? Mora walked up to Kurafir, the skeletal bird mask giving her a more furtive than fearsome appearance. The image was strengthened by the fact that she had a very slight, short frame. So, what's the plan, Kurafir? We need to slow down the enemy's attacks. Acts by constantly hitting them. But we should use the spirits and beasts to weaken them and disrupt their supply lines. Amora nodded and her orange eyes rolled back in her head. I'll explore the area and find something that will hurt the enemy. A set of birds began cawing and separating in all directions, clearly influenced by Amora's mind control powers. Kurafir tapped on the stones as Amora explored the area, neither one of them giving any indication of their thoughts. Closing his fist, Kurafir drew his sword with his free end and stabbed it into the stones, the blade sliding into the rock like butter. Casually, he rested his hand on the pommel of his blade and gazed out over the enemy, watching as they began setting up camp. Finally, Amora broke the silence. There are a few packs of Karamarn that are scattered through the area, including some large behemoths under the mountains. It will take time to gather them together as well as come up with a strategy. Move the Karamarn north to disrupt the supply lines. As for the behemoths, he thought for a moment. Keep them in reserve for when they could do the most damage. I can do that. Amora nodded, then rolled her eyes back. Every one of those animals will die, he thought, rage boiling inside him. Eyed him as he glared at the She's camp. They will never stop paying for what they've taken from me. So, what do you think they'll send more at us? Amora nodded to the enemy camp. This is only the tip of the spear at the She. Amora Kurafir gripped his sword more tightly. The Deep Ones have not fully entered this fight yet. There are more Cthulhan and other dangerous creatures lurking in the depths of the sea that will be joining this battle. They may be trying to burrow through the seaside entrance to try to get into the main citadel. How long will it take? If you can keep the Cthulhan from breaking through the collapsed gate, probably a week or two if we make sure to undo the damage, Kurafir said after making some careful calculations. The enemy will be trying to break into the layers, then the individual fortresses. The teeth at the mouth, Amora remarked. This place has never let anyone pass the lips yet. Kurafir grunted, but there hasn't been an all-out war between Olyntius and the She that involved this fortress. So you or people built this place? Amora asked, seeming actually interested in the history. Over several decades, Kurafir stroked the stones affectionately. There have been a few raids, but mostly it stood strong against all comers. Breathing in, he glanced at his fellow Azrith. Do you think the Kamo will get here on time? He's never failed me or any of his friends yet, Amora promised. He'll get here in time. We'll see. Kurafir retracted his hand and prepared to step into the Umbriel. I'll survey the other defenses. Keep an eye on the enemy. If they make a move, Oof. Oof. Let me know. Morinada rests her hands on the stones, eyes rolling back in her head. And that's the end of the chapter.
Short and sweet. I shouldn't say this, but it took me far longer than it should have taken to realize that it was an army of she instead of an army of sheep.
And we like sheep.
Yeah.
And we
Led
like sheep.
by Sheeptar, the Sheep King.
Cool. That'd be awesome. Like some deadly demon sheep. That'd be awesome. You should put that in.
There have been vampire Pomeranians in various pieces of fiction. I think.
I mean, Banicula was a thing I read. Yeah, did you read? Any of you read Banicula when you were younger?
I had my mom would read us books, and Banicula was actually one of them. Funnily enough.
Good. Oh, I also got that line: "Kill them until they give up or drown in their own blood." I just wanted to scream out, "Kill them until they die!"
Kill him dead. This guy's pretty dead, the brave warrior said. This guy's pretty dead because I killed him all dead. I caught him in two and I lopped off his head. And then this guy's head to the ravens I fed. It can't be gainsaid that this guy's pretty dead. The heroes all said, yeah, he's deader than Ned. Sorry to hijack your thing like that, Blight Eye.
Yeah. I guess I could rewrite that line. That's not.
Well, that's quite a tedious thing to have said.
Who, me?
Probably me. I guess it's.
Yeah, I think you've been up too long. You should go off to bed. Or maybe just quit while you're all still ahead.
Who, me or Blight or both?
I don't know. I want. I was, how long I could keep it going, but I've lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, there was one other thing. That line, "Who will defend the fortress from you?" I really like that. That is great. That's I think you should consider like finding some other place to put it in the chapter to give it a lot more dramatic weight. Just my thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, let me.
Because they have like there's like a little bit at the toward the second half of it where they're talking about like the history of the fortress, right? Was I getting that right?
Yes, there's a very slight piece in there that where they're talking about the small bits, like just the fact that they built it. Where should I put it? Yeah.
A Song of Ice and Fire, but the others are all sheep. Says,
The lion does not concern himself with the opinions of sheep.
That's not an opinion, it's a fact.
Yes, that's a wonderful little bit of hypocrisy. I love that.
Yeah.
Always.
I think I actually have that.
A lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of the sheep.
Opinions.
No, that's not an opinion. It's a fact.
Yeah. Yeah. Charles Dance killed it.
Yeah, he was definitely one of the best actors.
About the show.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, so the Azuramuth are attacking the Shi now, is it? Oh, I'm sorry. Delivery. Coming.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. Well,
Where do you think I could put the but who's going to defend the fortress from you line to go more weight?
are you attached to the end of the chapter at all? Are you? Because
Not. I can change. I can change it
yeah,
a little bit.
it would be a. I mean, it would definitely give the line a lot of weight to leave the have that as the last thing in the chapter. Just leave that with the audience.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's actually set. All right, I can definitely do that. That's actually sounds like a really good spot to put it.
Yeah. Anything else? I think that was all I had for this one. Any other feedback you wanted?
This one was pretty short. I probably need to put more interior monologue. That's one of my weaknesses is that I'm seeing it so clearly in my head, and I'm not really thinking of the interiority of the characters as much as describing the events taking place. I probably need to fix that at least a little bit. That's done.
Anyhow, this was a
it's just nice and short.
Yeah, real good.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll just wait for Valerian to finish up with his delivery.
Yeah.
Well, they do. Craster does give sacrifices of sheep, which is funny. I mean, it's just kind of funny.
Sorry, chaps. If Craster and Krasnus got merged in a transporter accident, you'd get Craster. Wouldn't that be a riot?
There's a character battle level called Craster.
What? Yeah.
Is my thing not coming through?
Yeah, he had a sudden loss of connection, I think.
Weird. Well, there is a guy named Grazer Irongut.
Fair enough. What's going on here?
All right, this has been
Very good.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, it's been very good.
It's been transcendent.
Transcend, indeed.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's call it good for today. See you guys later.
Next
All
time
right.
things
See
will
you
happen.
All right.
Have Riot.
This is a film about space wizards